Good morning, everyone. Hello, welcome to Coffee Break YXE. Today is Tuesday, July 6th, and I had in my mind do some math, make sure I had the right date. It is indeed Tuesday, July 6th. Thank you for watching. Our guest today is going to be Jeff Walters, Chief Official Agent for the Saskatchewan Liberal Party. We were supposed to have Jeff on last Tuesday, but unfortunately, I had a bit of a cycling accident. We had to postpone. Good news is I'm starting to feel better as long as I don't laugh or sneeze. I live in fear of sneezing. And even better news is Jeff is able to join us today. So we'll bring him up shortly. But before we do that, just a reminder. We're going to talk with Jeff about the Liberal leadership process because the provincial party here is going through a process of selecting a leader this fall. But just a reminder before we bring Jeff on, this is your show. Welcome. Feel free to offer comments, questions, critique, criticisms, whatever you want in the comments, whether you're watching on YouTube or Facebook. If we can, we'll use them on air. If you have questions for Jeff when we're chatting with him, please feel free to ask a question. Now, a shout out to our sponsors, and I'm going to find this right here. First of all, our first sponsor, RDL Photos, is an affordable local photographer for any occasion. With packages starting at just $40, anyone can afford professional level photos for any occasion in life. If you're looking for the crisp new headshot or just want photos of you or your family having fun, RDL Photos is the place to go. For more information, check him out, and him is Riel Lajmodier. Check him out online. Just type rdl.photos into your web browser of choice, or you can find Riel and RDL Photos on Instagram at rdl.photos. You need to book fast because summer slots are filling up quickly. And if you do check out his website or Instagram, there's a lot of amazing photos there. I'd strongly encourage you to take a look. Now, our guest, he is the Chief Official Agent for the Saskatchewan Liberal Party. He is also a candidate for the Liberals in the last provincial election. Here to talk about the party's search for a new leader, please welcome to our show, Jeff Walters. Jeff, how are you today?
Doing very well, thank you. Thanks for having me on.
And thank you for being here. And I apologize for postponing last week. I had a 11 kilometer per hour to zero encounter with a metal post, which didn't end well for me.
I understand, yes.
The post is doing well. First of all, just give us a sense. There was an election last fall. There was an interim leader. Now you've started a process to select a new leader. Can you, in broad strokes, give us the rundown how that process looks?
Sure, absolutely. And everything I say or don't say here, you can always find on our website, at saskliberals.ca. We have an entire section about the leadership race and the forms that you need to sign and whatever the case may be. But we are looking for, of course, serious candidates, which helps. We have forms that need to be filled out. There's a deadline to get the forms in of August 24th. So starting from now to August 24th, there's forms, but there's also a $150 deposit that goes with the paperwork. But also attached to that is the expectation that each candidate's find contributions from individual donors of around $3,500, which will go straight to the party. This has its own separate deadline of September 25th. The purpose of the $3,500 is for the candidate to display their ability to actually fundraise, which is, of course, important to any party. Now, with that being said, whoever decides to put their hat in and decides to go through the process and trying to find their donors, they also need a list of 25 Sask Liberal members to sign on as nominators for them as well, to show that they have some standing within the party too. So when that particular process is done, after August 24th, that's when the race sort of starts. So from August 24th, we head on to October 16th, which is where and when we're going to have our leadership convention. The convention is going to be in Davidson, Saskatchewan, in their convention center there. It will be face-to-face, but also live streamed. The face-to-face is, of course, dependent on whatever rules and regulations that we have with regard to COVID restrictions. But the idea is to hybridize it to include as many people as possible, but still have that live feel, which is, of course, needed for something like this. Now, if you wish to be a delegate to this particular convention, to actually be there face-to-face or come online or participate any way whatsoever, you can also become a party member if you're not already. You have till September 10th to do that. And you can register up until October 10th to be part of the process as well.
So is it kind of in a sense a typical process for leadership, in the sense that the leaders will identify themselves, I'm running, and they'll try and find as many members as they can before the September 10th deadline to vote for them?
Yes, the whole process is that it wasn't reinventing the wheel at all. It's actually most of the process that's been used since time immemorable for the party. The amounts of money change over time, of course, and the number of people to assign as nominators change over time. But everything in that process is really just well, it's been there through the David Karwacki era, even earlier than that, up until today. So all we've been doing is just modernizing it a bit. And we also have, of course, rules and regulations for running as well that we've modernized to ensure that it properly reflects, of course, where the party is standing right now. But the idea is to get serious candidates, people who really want to dig deep and help us rebuild this party, which is much needed. And it's a long-term thing. People are going to donate 4 to 8 years of their lives at least to this. We need to know that people who are going to and who want to be that leader know how serious it is to be it, what the commitments are, and are willing to work with us again to create the party that we want to create.
What's the ballot? If I'm not attending in person, can I send in a ranked ballot?
Yes, you actually can vote in online. So anywhere you are at that particular point in time, you'll get a code sent to you by email. You can go in there, log in, and just vote. There can be early voting too that we have set up too, and just in case that doesn't work for you. But of course, the idea is not to limit, but to facilitate. So we want people to vote. And we're not going to try and set any arbitrary limitations to do so. We want to reach as many people as possible, liberals and non-liberals, or people just feeling us out for the first time to see if we can be that centrist party that they're looking for right now. So the whole point is to try and incorporate as much of it as possible to have maximum amount of participation.
So for clarity, then it will be a live voting process that at the event somebody will be knocked off the ballot, then I have to log in during the actual live event to vote again, or can I send in a ranked ballot and go to the cottage for the weekend?
It'll be a ranked ballot, yep, so you won't have to keep revoting.
Okay. Before we move forward, let's look at the past. And we had an election in the fall. You ran, I believe, was it 3 candidates in the election, yourself including?
Yeah, I was one of the chosen 3, yes.
And you were under an interim leader. Describe the process last fall going to the election with an interim leader running 3 candidates.
Yeah, it was the entire process was quite difficult. We had an actual permanent leader that chose to resign right before the election started for various reasons that are known only to him and the executive at the time. But that put us in a very bad situation because a party needs to have a leader in an election if they're going to field candidates. That's part of the rules. And so we had to find an interim, and that interim really could only have been one of the 3 candidates that were left. It used to be 4 candidates with the old leader. So it was up to between myself, who was brand new to the scene and haven't run anything before, for somebody else who was elderly, who of course had no desire to want to be leader. And so it kind of defaulted to our 3rd candidate, who was gracious enough to step up and donate their time, because being a leader, it does soak up a lot of time and effort. So you need to have somebody who can actually do that and is willing to do it. So we were lucky just to find an interim to be able to field candidates. And I guess the overall theme of all this is that the party obviously was not where we wanted to be this last election. A lot of things did not go our way for the last few years going into it, and just kind of ended us troughing at that particular point in time. So our goal right now, of course, is simply to rebuild.
Before we, again, looking back at that election, from what I recall from media reports, some of the policies I was hearing coming out from the Liberal Party of Saskatchewan was, for lack of a better word, be fairly left of center. Is that kind of was the flavor of the leader, or flavor of the party at the time, or where did that come from?
Well, at that period of time, for unfortunate reasons, a lot of those policies you've been talking about were ones that have been around for a little bit. We didn't get the opportunity to have a serious policy convention, which is what a party needs in order to create a comprehensive policy platform. And of course, it's very difficult to present yourself as a party at someone's door without a comprehensive policy platform. So a lot of it was defaulted from old previous ideas and just bits and pieces. Now, with the left of center idea, I can see where that comes up for the most part on certain aspects. But we've got to remember that the Saskatchewan Liberal Party is a centrist party, that we're not left, we're not right, we're in the center. And that means compromise from all groups. I mean, at some points, it's sometimes easier to be NDP, where you can just be left all the time, and that kind of solidifies yourself. But we're pragmatists, and we're people that want as many groups coming together to have a consensus. And that's really what it comes down to. And so there are some left of center policies, but if you look a little harder, there are some more conservative policy too, such as our tax policy or whatnot, which lies to more of the right wing side. And really the idea, of course, again, is to find that center, because that's where we want to be. That's who we are. That there's no such thing as a bad idea just because it comes from somewhere that you may not agree with. If there is a good idea, there's no reason why it should be rejected out of hand precisely because it comes from an ideology that you don't necessarily agree with. Right? Good ideas are good ideas.
So the leadership convention, if I can call it that, this fall, will there be any policy initiatives connected with that as well? Any policy decisions?
There will be some policy decisions, and they're based almost entirely on the leaders' policy ideas, those people who are running. Of course, they're going to be running a campaign, and every campaign needs policy ideas. So every individual person, candidate who's running as leader, will have their policy shells, as we call them, that they're running on, that they want to bring to the party. So at the convention, when they have their major speeches, of course, these policy ideas are going to come up, but it's also going to come up throughout the entire campaign from that August 24th up until October 16th. So it's going to come up over and over again. And of course, the job afterwards, once we pick our leader, is to hybridize their policy ideas with the parties and to come again with a massive and a comprehensive policy platform.
Being the Liberal Party of Saskatchewan, is there any need or any requirements to align somewhat policy-wise, or even, I guess, communications or working-wise with the federal party here in Saskatchewan?
It's interesting you mentioned that, and it's something that tends to come up on our affiliation with the federal party. And the reality is that we detached from the federal party almost over a decade ago, that we don't have affiliations anymore. And really our focus is Saskatchewan, not necessarily the country as a whole. That's why we have federal politics, and that's why we have provincial politics. The Saskatchewan Liberals, we bring the idea and concept of prairie liberalism, right, our ideology, to the province of Saskatchewan, and which has a rich history in this province, going from 1905 up until the present. We've always been a major party. We've had, up until this point, still a majority of premiers. We've played a major role in constructing this province based upon the ideas of prairie liberalism. That doesn't stop with us. Our first point of concern is always going to be the province, and that's really what we rely on. We use our ideology to try and construct a society within Saskatchewan where everybody can benefit and based upon our particular ideals. If that happens to align with the feds at any given time, that's terrific, but we don't rely on them for anything.
Something you mentioned there, I didn't know, and I thought it was an interesting point. And I want to make sure I heard correctly. The Liberal Party has a majority of premiers in the province in the history? Since
1905, yeah. I believe that's accurate. I'm 95% sure that's accurate.
That's interesting.
We can look it up. And if we're not, we're a close second. We've had every premier from 1905 up until 1933, and then a few afterwards. So we're talking about a good number of people.
Okay, so I think we're probably 3+ years away from the next provincial election. So if you were to look in your crystal ball, what do you see? Do you see a party running a candidate in every constituency?
Those are always kind of a pitfall. Not every party actually has candidates or tangible candidates for every constituency. Most don't. They'll have paper candidates just to have that perception. Our personal goal is to have quality candidates. If that means having quality candidates in just 25, we're good with that. So we're not spending money in places and diluting what we have to places that we don't really have a solid standing. So ideally, every party wants 61 candidates for every constituency, but we would prefer to have the quality ones there first. And if it metastasizes from that, that's terrific. But at the end of the day, it really just comes down to having, and this is already our goal going forward for the next 3.5 years, having a solid overall strategic plan, which is what we have, having a solid comprehensive policy platform that we can show to the Saskatchewan people, this is what we're about, and having a leader to be able to be the head and to sell those particular policy ideas and to lead us through that strategic plan going into the next election.
You're watching Coffee Break YXE. I'm your host, Ian Roach. With me today is the Chief Official Agent for the Saskatchewan Liberal Party, Jeff Walters. Jeff, if I can beg your indulgence, I'm just going to give another shout out to a sponsor. We'll come back for a few more questions if you have time.
Sure, sounds good.
Okay. Let me see. Where is it here? Here it is. Okay. Looking for something great to do near Saskatoon? Want to get out of the city and bask in Saskatchewan nature? Take the family or a friend out to Petrovka Orchard. They have great cafe that serves homemade food, a beautiful store full of products, gourmet apple and other products, large variety of ice cream treats. After you fill your belly, you can take a walk to the riverfront beach and enjoy the most beautiful walking trails around the apple orchard. Petrovka Orchard is only 40 minutes north of Saskatoon, right on Highway 12 at the base of the Petrovka Bridge. It's open daily from 10 to 6, but please note the cafe is closed on Wednesdays. Check the website for more information at petrovkaorchard.com. And it's a wonderful place. I'm addicted to their cinnamon buns. Strongly encourage anybody to get up there and try those. Jeff, do you like cinnamon buns?
Absolutely. I'm a fanatic.
They put a little bit of bits of apple in them, and they do them in their Dukkabor oven with the Dukkabor bread. So it's wood fired. They're pretty good. Anyway, I digress. So let's look ahead. And I before my accident, I looked at the returns from the parties, including the Liberal Party, and the coffers are a little thin. And it sounds like that could be a big thing is getting that money raised in the next 3 years to do to put on fight a good election. What are your thoughts about your capacity to raise money to represent the Liberals in Saskatchewan?
Well, that is a good question. Ultimately, money is how political parties operate, so it's a big deal. The reason, or one of the reasons why we have been kind of low, is a myriad of reasons, actually. And it really just comes down to us really not marketing ourselves or projecting ourselves as a party that people want to be attached to. We've kind of limited ourselves over the years in that whole marketing scheme. And what I mean about that is that if you drive around Saskatoon and Regina, you'll see lots of signs up, for example, for Sask Party members, and even when it comes to close to campaign time, NDP members, even some certain other parties. But we ourselves, the Sask Liberals, we've kind of gotten away from that. And so people are less wondering what we're about anymore because we're not telling them what we're about, and more just falling back to the old ideas, such as the party, it's not doing well, or it's attached to the feds. We're not defending ourselves, or we're not giving people a reason to want to actually contribute to us. And that's really is all about to change. As I was mentioning before, how we're going to rebrand ourselves and rebuild ourselves. And part of that comes from a leader that can be the head of these ideas and be able to communicate these ideas to the society at large, and to drum up some interest and support to show that we do have ideas. We're not just an extension of Justin Trudeau, or whatever the case may be. We have good ideas. We're still viable. We are still a mainstream party, and we're your centrist party. And if those things and our ideas appeal to you, come with us. So it's really more about just, I guess, in some states, reinventing ourselves and just having people remember that we do exist. We have ideas. Look at our ideas and join if you wish. And we're here for you.
You mentioned the name Justin Trudeau. It seems from an observer's point of view, an outside observer's point of view, that it's almost a hobby here to bash Liberals, and especially the federal Liberals here in Saskatchewan. Does that, people that may not understand, there's a disconnect between the parties, in name only, your connection. Does that hurt the Liberal Party of Saskatchewan here?
It can, if we're not communicating directly with the public. Right? If we allow other people to drive the narrative about what we're about, which is what we have been doing recently, then of course only the negative is going to be seen. And so part of the concept and idea is to reintroduce ourselves to Saskatchewan, to show them that we are, in fact, stewards of prairie liberalism, which is very Saskatchewan based and not necessarily attached to the feds. The interesting thing about the Justin Trudeau thing, I don't want to harp on this too much. Everybody has feelings, and there's reasonable ways that we can understand why people don't like him here in the West, based upon certain policy ideas he's done. But the catch of all this is that in the 2015 federal election, 25% of Saskatchewan voted for a Liberal. And so a quarter of the province decided to check that box of a Liberal name in Saskatchewan. And that was only 6 years ago. So there is interest in the concept of liberalism here. It's just a means of us as a party, again, reintroducing ourselves and showing our worth that people perhaps will want to actually, again, check that box by our names again, to give them a reason to. And that's our job. That's on us. That's what we need to do better.
I want to back up a bit. The question I forgot to ask, and we're talking about it's around campaign financing. Is still in Saskatchewan, one of the few provinces left that I describe as kind of no holds barred kind of fundraising. What are your thoughts on fundraising in Saskatchewan? The Liberal Party or yourself, if you can speak for yourself, have any sense that maybe we should look at that?
Well, yeah, so even the party, we've actually talked about this quite a bit. I even think there's a bit of this on our website about some type of reform, that it's kind of the Wild West here. There are not a whole lot of rules. And unfortunately, when that happens, those that can best essentially market themselves to corporations or people with large sums of cash tend to benefit most, and those tend to be the parties in power. And so you have this disparity that people will donate to the people in power precisely because they have a power ratio that will have best return for their money. If there's no limitations, which Saskatchewan doesn't have, we get into that cycle where money starts to talk more than actual policy. And so really the party and myself are all for trying to have some type of campaign finance reform in order to put some sanity back in it, to put some limitations. Now, there's nothing wrong with, with candidates trying to find donations and contributions. That's how they pay for things. But at the end of the day, certain companies or corporations, especially those that aren't even in Saskatchewan, should have less of a say in our politics than what they currently have. So campaign finance reform, all it takes is one government in Saskatchewan. It could be the Sask Party, anybody, just to ask Elections Saskatchewan to review things and have recommendations. But of course, those in power don't want that because they benefit from it most. So myself and the party really do think that Saskatchewan is way overdue for campaign finance reform. Absolutely.
Okay, so if somebody's interested in politics, kind of like what they're hearing now, is this a good time to get involved in the grassroots of the Liberal Party and shape what you're going to look like for the next little while?
Oh, absolutely. This is the time. This literally is the time, because we are reinventing and rebuilding, right? As you mentioned, for the 2020, we of course troughed, and really the only place to go is up. And so with us that are here, we are essentially reinventing the wheel for the most part. So for those that would like more of a say in an up and coming political party, would like to actually be more engaged in a party that's up and coming, this is the time. And the benefits are legion. I mean, we have a brand name, which helps. We have an infrastructure that's been there for generations. And of course, we have the ideology of consensus for a centrist party that's the province just doesn't have right now, where we don't really have a centrist party that has essentially claimed that center moving forward. We have the Sask Party on the right, the NDP on the left, then we have the fringe parties, but nobody really in that big chasm avenue in the center, which is what we are. So if that's you, this is the time. Come give us your ideas, join along, and you will see us in the next 4 or 8 years, the tangible benefits that will come with it.
You'd mentioned you're a centrist party. I think we need to talk a bit about probably, I can't prove this, but I think it's probably the fastest growing party in Saskatchewan right now is the rise of the Buffalo Party. What are your thoughts on the rise of I guess, a party that you could argue is even right of the Saskatchewan Party? Does that impact you at all, or do you have any thoughts on that?
There is a certain impact to that, just by virtue of the Buffalo Party. And you're right, they're right of the Sask Party. And right now, Premier Moe and the Saskatchewan Party are spending the vast majority of their time, going against the Buffalo Party. And the further the Saskatchewan Party is pulled to the right by the Buffalo Party, the more the center is left open, and some people are felt wanting. And it really is true. If you talk to a lot of former Sask Party members and Sask Party members right now, there is a bit of discontent that the party is moving away from them. And that's just the reality of it. And we have to understand that in 2020, the election, something like 46% of eligible voters didn't bother voting. That's like the largest percentage in over a generation. There's a lot of discontented people out there politically that don't see a party that best represents them. And people don't vote for parties unless they think that the party has a chance to succeed in some way. So at the end of the day, that 46%, a good chunk of them do come from the Sask Party. And that's what the Buffalo Party is kind of bringing to Saskatchewan politics. They will never form a government. They're too far to the right to appeal on a mass level. But they can win a seat or two and change the very dynamics of our political system just by doing that. And that's why the Sask Party seems to be attacking them and going against them so much. But the more they do that, the more the center opens up and more discontented people at the center and right of center actually will be.
Okay, so Jeff, let's do a hypothetical here. You and I meet in downtown Saskatoon. We go into one of our larger buildings. We go on the main floor, and we're going up to the 17th floor. You have from the main floor to the 17th floor, maybe a couple stops to try and convince me to buy a Liberal Party membership. What's your pitch?
Well, my pitch is that you will see, actually, once we get our leader and whatnot, we are going to be the shiny new object who's forward thinking. Right? We're not going to be attached to stale ideas from the past. So when we walk into our convention with our new leader and when we work on our policy, and once we're done with the preliminaries, you will see a new party, a very forward-looking party, and a very consensus centrist party, where not everything is bad simply because it comes from somewhere on the political spectrum. The way that we help as many people as possible is to essentially being open to as many ideas as possible. That's what centrist parties are all about. It's all about consensus. It's all about bringing groups together. And at the end of the day, it's about helping as many people as possible by doing so. So we will be the shiny new forward-looking party that is open to anything as long as it helps the people of Saskatchewan.
Jeff, if people want more information about the leadership process or the Liberal Party Saskatchewan, where can they find it?
You can go to our party website. It's sasliberals.ca. It has all the information, including everything I've forgotten or twisted up. It's all there if you want. Everything you need to know about us is there. Even my contact information is in there on the executive list. If you want to talk to me personally, I'm always willing to talk to people.
Personal question. Are you planning to be a candidate in the next election?
That's 4 years away. We'll see what happens. I say tentatively that would be a good idea. It's much like running for leader. It takes a large toll on your family. It takes a large toll on everything else in your life. And if you want to do it seriously and competently, you have to put a lot of thought into it. So I'll probably know more in a few years where everything stands. I'm open to the idea now, of course. I mean, I just ran before once, and I know exactly what I'm doing now, which helps. So tentatively, yes, I guess is your question.
I guess I should ask this question too, is do you have any intentions to run for the leadership?
Not at this time, no. We were talking about this before the broadcast. I have some family things that I need to attend to, some very serious ones that will take the most of my attention right now, and well-deserved. Family always comes first. So not this point of time, no.
You're right. Family is always important. Family is certainly important. Appreciate that kind of value that you have there. And I wish you all the best as you work through that with your family. Jeff, thank you so much. Any final comments?
No, I'd just like to say thank you very much for having us on there. Or it's actually nice to be able to go to a media event for once, being a Sask Liberal. So that's a good thing. And I'm glad to see that you're okay. We're always worried about when you get an email saying somebody's had a major accident. So it's nice to see.
Yeah, and I think it certainly felt bad. I think there's still some issues I need to get checked out, but I'm on the right side of the daisy, shall we say, which is always good. Thank you so much, Jeff. Maybe we'll have you on a bit closer to the fall when things ramp up, or maybe after the leadership closure, I guess, in terms of people getting their names in, and we'll chat a bit more about it. I've really enjoyed the conversation today.
Well, thanks, Ian. So have I. I'd love to come back anytime.
Okay, take care.
You too. Bye-bye.
That's Coffee Break YXE for today. Thank you so much for watching. As always, feel free to leave comments even after the show, whether you're watching on YouTube or Facebook. Really appreciate you being here. Our next program today is at noon. It's Let's Chat with Nezri Nessa. That begins at noon, and that program, I'll remind you, is in Arabic. It's a wonderful show. Please feel free to tune into that. Our next program after that, we have a bit of abbreviated schedule this week, is Wednesday night. We have Green Room YXE with Leslie Stanwick, Johnny Sinclair. That's our music roundup show. And I'm going to share with you now that Sportsline YXE with Linda Walker Thursdays at 12:15 is not going to happen this week. Linda's under the weather. I could say it's not COVID related, but she just needs some time to get over some stuff. And we wish her all the best as she races like me to feeling better. That's it for us here today. Please tune in. I'll be back next Thursday at 10 a.m. Bye for now.